Good morning. How are you guys? All right, well, thank you all so much for coming out so early. I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to a great LiveWorks, and I'm assuming all of you are as well. Welcome. Thank you. My name is Vinny Da Silva, and I'm a developer evangelist with the Vuforia Engine group, the Vuforia Engine team. And I'm here to talk to you guys about augmented reality and creating amazing applications with augmented reality. Is that better? Awesome. Thank you, by the way. All right, so this talk here, we're going to talk about how to create augmented reality experiences using Unity. And the idea here is that you guys can use Unity to create your content and your experiences, and you use Vuforia to bring it into the real world. So the way that we like to think about the Vuforia engine is that Vuforia engine gives your applications an eye into the real world. So Vuforia uses advanced computer vision to understand the world and allow you to put content onto objects and to environments. Now the Vuforia engine is a cross-platform, code once, augment everywhere solution. So you don't have to target individual SDKs. So if you want to work on iOS or if you want to work on Android, you don't have to target specific ARKit or ARCore. If you're going to do something on a universal Windows platform, you just use Vuforia, the tools we provide, and you guys can put content everywhere. This also means that your app works and feels the same no matter what platforms you're targeting. So, the way that we like to think about it as part of the Vuforia engine is that we allow developers to put content onto two types of places. We can put content onto objects, so things like product packaging, posters, marketing collateral, all sorts of places. You get to do that with Vuforia in augmenting objects. And then you can also put content relative to the environment. So on the floor, on a table, floating in the middle of a room. So it's either object-based or environmental-based. So now in this talk, I'm going to split it up into two different parts. First, I'm going to be talking about how to put content onto objects and the solutions that Vuforia engine provides developers to put content onto objects. And then I'll also be working on and looking at how to put content onto the environment. So we'll be talking about that as well. So just out of curiosity, how many people here are developers? All right, awesome. How many here are studio developers? Okay, awesome, cool. So this talk here is going to be mostly on engine. There will be some things here that you can take away for studio as well. So let's talk about putting content onto objects. All right, so first thing I'm going to talk about here is the view mark. Which is very similar to the ThingWorx for those of you guys who are familiar with Studio. And what's really fun about this one here is that not only can you put content, not only can you augment objects using view marks, you can also identify an object down to serial number. And that's because we can store data inside of a view mark. We like to think of view marks kind of like barcodes or QR codes for augmented reality. So you can store data there and identify an object down to serial number. Image targets are kind of our bread and butter. This allows you to put content onto flat 2D images. So posters, books, brochures, anything that has a flat image, you can put content on top of it. Now, if a 2D image isn't enough and you need a little bit more depth, we have a cuboid target or a multi-target. This allows you to identify all sides of a cuboid or a box-shaped object, and you can put content anywhere on it, and you can rotate the object and see it from any different angle. So it gives you guys a lot of options for putting content onto product packaging. Cylinder targets are a lot of fun as well. What they allow you to do is identify some kind of an image that's going to be on a cylindrical object. This is mostly used for bottles, and there's a really interesting app called Vivino that uses this as well. Allows you to put content and identify wine bottles. And then lastly, if you're looking for something that doesn't quite fit these shapes, you're looking for something that's small, rigid, and has a lot of color that pops out, you can use an object target. And what you do with that is that you can then scan an object using our tools and put content on top of that as well. Now, what all of these have in common, all of these objects have in common here, is that they all have what we call contrasting natural features. So they have this visual detail that really pops, that allows the computer vision algorithms to latch onto and to allow you to put content. Now, in the engine team, we're always thinking about all of the different objects that we've always wanted to augment that we haven't been able to augment because they don't necessarily fall in these categories. So we think about things like cars that have been traditionally really tricky to augment because they're pretty shiny, they have a lot of reflective and transparent surfaces. We think about consumer appliances, which when they were created or when these were manufactured, they weren't actually built with augmented reality in mind. 3D printing is becoming incredibly popular. We have some 3D printer folks here. People are doing all sorts of prototyping with 3D printing, and we want to augment these objects as well. Of course, we want to augment industrial equipment, and we also want to look at things like motors and engines. All of these things here have been traditionally really tricky to augment, and that's why Vuforia last year introduced the Vuforia model targets. And what this allows you to do is it allows you to augment and put content on the whole new class of objects. And the way that we do this is by using CAD data or any kind of 3D model data, so either solid models or mesh models. We have a pipeline that allows you to take in that information and generate model targets, and then you can put content into the real world using model targets. So for those of you who are Unity developers or are looking to work with Unity, we have a bunch of samples in the Unity Asset Store, and all of these samples work with these cards. We also have some demos in our booth, which is right over here, if you guys want to check it out. Feel free to stop by and chat with our engineers. So now I'm going to go into a little bit more detail of some examples of some of the things that you guys can do with our technology. So here, of course, we have an image target, and you can see here we have this flat card, and we're just putting some content on top of it. Really simple experience, but you can imagine all the types of places that we can put content on top of it. Here we have a cylinder target, and this is also part of our samples. So here, in this example here, we have a rocket booster, and I just want to point out a couple things. So of course, we have our physical object here, which is the cylinder, and now we have this drone that is flying around this physical object. Now, when you know the geometry of the object you're trying to augment and the things you're trying to do, you can do some really interesting techniques. So in this case here, what we are doing is that when the drone is flying behind the rocket booster, you see that it's getting occluded by the physical object. So when we know the geometry, we can do some really interesting tricks like this. I also want to point out that sometimes when we're trying to put content in, when we're trying to augment objects or put virtual content into the real world, we often don't think about how the physical and the digital interact with each other. And I think this is a really interesting example where we have a virtual drone that is sort of interacting with a physical object. So I think that's one of the places where you can find some really interesting experiences where you have this sort of intersection between the two. So here's a really simple example of a multi-target. In this case here, we're just augmenting, putting some content on this box where there's gameplay happening. So we're putting all sorts of gameplay state happening right on this box. And then here's an example of an object target. So this one here isn't quite just a cube or something that we can easily process. So this is an object that we had to scan in, and then we can put content on top of it. So we're putting all sorts of information here about the O2 levels that's on this habitat that's supposedly in Mars. Also want to show you guys some examples of things that we've done with model targets as well. So here's a quick little video. And you can see that as that experience started up, we had this outline of this 3D printed object. And then we align it. And once we align it, we have it sort of, we can put content all over it. I'll play that one more time. And we also have this demo also available in our engine booth here. So once we recognize the object, we can rotate all around it, and content can stay relative to your physical object. Here's another example that we put together. This one here, we're using the same 3D printed object, but in this situation here, we're not just putting content around it. We're having an experience where we're interacting with the physical and the digital. So we have this flamethrower. You'll notice that as the flamethrower flames start aiming towards the physical object, the flames will bounce off of it. So we're having this virtual flame bounce off of this physical object, and then we put in a shader, and then we sort of ramp up the dissolve, and you can see that it sort of creates this melting effect. I'm going to play that one more time for you guys. The flames are shooting out. Now they're bouncing. So we have this interaction, and then now we put this shader to have this melting effect. And we also have this as well in our booth if you guys want to play around with it. Check it out. So there's a couple examples of some things that are in the consumer space that people can purchase today. I don't know if any of you have heard of the Merge Cube. The Merge Cube is a really interesting toy that's being sold, I think, on Amazon and a lot of toy stores around the US and Canada. They create this cube, they sell it, and then the idea is that developers then can create content that's based on the cube. So the way that I like to think about it is it's a lot like a console. So consumers buy the console. Developers don't have to worry about how they actually distribute the console to the market, right? The Merge guys are taking care of that. They're putting the cubes in retail stores everywhere, and then developers can create their content that works off of it. On the left here, we have a really simple educational experience where you get to explore their solar system. And on the right, we have this other experience where we're using the Merge Cube and computer vision to sort of control the experience here. And we'll also have this demo in our booth as well. Another consumer product that's going to be launched, I believe, later this year is a toy called SWATbots. And the way that these work is that there's three different, for each of these little robots that they make, these block-shaped robots, there's three different sections. There's a head, there's a torso, and then there's the feet. And the idea is that kids will buy these, they'll swap them out. So you can put the octopus tentacles on the samurai body with the eagle head, or mix them up in any way you want, and then kids can sort of battle each other in augmented reality with their friends. Another educational-based experience is from OCTAGON Studios. They make a bunch of these flashcards. This example here is dinosaurs, but they also have space ones where they have all sorts of space vehicles from all over the world. They have one that's based on racing. They have one that's based on like learning professions. So very focused on education, but they have these augmented reality cards. They're pretty simple to use. Kids can use them. They don't need a ton of training. They can just pick these up and start playing around with these right away. And earlier this year, Mattel announced the 50th anniversary of Hot Wheels. And for that project, what they're doing is that they're creating this new sort of track called the AUGMOTO. So if any of you guys grew up like me with these sort of tracks where you have a button and then the car sort of just speeds around in ovals. What they're doing here, that they're using a combination of really interesting technology to bring this sort of classic experience into the modern world. What they're doing here is that not only are they using model targets and augmented reality, so you can sort of know what's happening on the track, not only in the physical space, but in the virtual space, but they're also adding in some interesting things with Bluetooth. And what happens is that when you have both of these combinations, where you have experience happening on the tablet as well as on the physical world, what you can actually do is introduce Mario Kart type gameplay experiences that happen in the real world. And I think we might have some videos of these, but what's really fun about these is that you have things like you have to strategically pick when you're going to have a pit stop. And then you have to strategically pick when to use your missiles to stall the other car from moving, prevent the other car from moving. So I'm really looking forward to seeing more of this later this year. Another technology, another application or experience that's using our model targets technology is the Ask Mercedes app. And for those of you interested, you guys can check out a demo that's right over there near the side, near the IoT AR booth space. Just look for the beautiful Mercedes S-Class. You guys can hop in and check it out. And what's happening here is that Mercedes wants to use augmented reality in order to replace the user's manual. So what you do here is you launch your application, you point at your dashboard, and you can start to see all of these hotspots, these points of interest all across your dashboard. And then at this point here, you can sort of dig deeper and get more information or videos on how to use particular parts of your car. So I talked a lot about some of the things that we're doing with model targets. I want to talk a little bit about what we're doing on our next revision of model targets, which we call model targets with advanced recognition. So what we're doing here is that we're tying our model targets technology with deep learning in order to be able to recognize not only many objects, but objects from any angle. So you'll notice that as the camera here, the device pans over a device, we figure out what orientation you're in. We pick the appropriate angle for approach. The user needs to do a slight alignment, and then the augmentation starts. You can also see here that we have multiple objects at the same time. So you can see here both of the motorbikes here on the table were at different angles, and we can detect them, and we can augment them all separately from each other. I believe we also have a demo of this, but this is going to be in the Vuforia engine booth in the AR area. And for those of you guys who are more interested in learning more about model targets, if you guys want to know sort of best practices, I have another talk tomorrow. I'm not sure if it's in the morning or afternoon, but feel free to check out the schedule. I'll be here tomorrow, and I'll be going into a lot of detail about how to create really great experiences using model targets. Okay, so that was objects. We talked about how to put content onto images and boxes and multi-targets. Talked about some consumer applications that are out in the market, model targets. Now we're going to talk about how to put content onto the environment. And for those of you guys who are familiar, this is technology that's similar to what you might have been hearing about from either Apple or Google when it comes to ARKit or ARCore. I'll be talking a little bit more about that. Now, when it comes to putting content onto the environment, the Vuforia engine team has been working on this for a long time. We first announced something in 2013, and back then, we were creating these excellent experiences that were using tablets, and they were using sensors, depth sensing cameras that were attached to devices that allowed this to happen. And with specialized equipment like depth sensing camera, we can get a lot of information about the environment. We can figure out what objects are here, what size things are, how far away things are. There's a lot of detail that we can get from the environment when we have depth sensing cameras. But this kind of experience is only feasible with world-facing depth sensing cameras. And what we all really, really want, right, is we want to take the phones out of our pockets, point it at the world, and have this kind of experience. Unfortunately, when we only have RGB cameras on our phones and our tablets, we can't get this kind of rich detail about the environment. But what we can do is we can do a really good job at finding planes and finding surfaces that we can work with. And that's why Vuforia last year announced Vuforia Ground Plane. And this allows us to put content onto the environment. So we can put something on a floor or on a table. It works indoors, it works outdoors, really robust technology. And this all is possible. All of this is possible by using another technology that we introduced last year called Vuforia Fusion. And what Vuforia Fusion allows us to do, it allows us to be able to reach the broadest possible devices while still being able to leverage the best possible technology. So we don't want to have any compromises. We want to allow developers to be able to reach the market that they want to reach, and we also want to let developers use the latest technology that's available. So what does this mean in practicality? What this means is that if you use Vuforia, the Vuforia engine, and you're creating an experience that could leverage ARKit or ARCore, and you create this experience and you publish it to the store. Then your user or your player, depending if it's a game or experience, downloads this application on iPhone 10. iPhone 10 supports ARKit. Vuforia will automatically leverage ARKit internally. We will take care of all that for you. And we'll make the experience be what you're envisioning. That same application being downloaded on an iPhone 6, which does not support ARKit, it won't crash. It's not going to be disabled. It's going to continue working. But what we will do is that we'll automatically leverage our own visual inertial odometry system. We'll use our own VIO system. And then what that will allow you to do is allow you to have the same experience on a broader range of devices. On ARCore, same thing. You create your application, your APK, you publish it to the Play Store. Somebody with a brand new Pixel 2 or a Samsung S9 downloads the application. We will automatically leverage ARCore for you. You don't have to do any additional plumbing for ARCore specifically. And then they run that application, we'll use ARCore, we'll lock your content in place, it's gonna run as you expected. Now that same application gets downloaded to, let's say, Samsung S6. I think that one does not support ARCore, or another device doesn't support ARCore. It's going to continue working. We're just going to leverage our own visual inertial odometry system. So the idea here is, like I said before, we will leverage the platform enablers if they're there. We will make them available for developers and users to leverage and use. But at the same time, we want to make sure that if you're targeting a market that maybe is not in the US, right, where they don't have high-end phones, you have a broader range of devices, Vuforia takes care of that for you. So I mentioned ARCore. ARCore is not actively in the current release version of Vuforia. It's going to be out very, very soon this summer. I look forward to seeing that. Also want to talk about something else too. So with the initial release of Vuforia Fusion, we only had support for ground plane. Now we're expanding Vuforia Fusion into what we call our device tracker. And this allows you to have extended tracking functionality in leveraging ARCore and ARKit. So for those of you who are not familiar with extended tracking, what extended tracking allows you to do is not only can you put content onto an object, but as you pan away or you move away, or if the object for some other reason can't be augmented on its own based on its visual features, we will start using the environment around it to lock the content in place. So this is a little example here where we have this, we have an image target down here, we have this tall building, and then you can see here that in this frame, we've panned up the device so the image target is no longer in view, but the content is still there. It still feels like it's locked in place. That's what extended tracking allows you to do, and that's what we're gonna be leveraging. In addition to our 4th generation of SLAM system, we're also going to be using ARKit and ARCore to leverage for extended tracking as well. All right, so like I mentioned before, we have a lot of samples available both on our website, developer.vuforia.com, as well as on the Unity Asset Store. So for those of you who are looking to get started working on Vuforia right away, go on to the Unity Asset Store, search for PTC or search for Vuforia, and you'll find all our samples there. We have maybe 8 or 9 samples available for developers to play around with. And then, like I mentioned before, Vuforia 7.1 is available in Unity 2018.1 today. Very soon we'll be launching We'll be launching Vuforia 7.2 with ARCore functionality and a broader Vuforia Fusion support. And for those of you who are looking forward to doing anything with model targets with advanced recognition, we have it in our early access program. Check out our website to learn more about it. Thank you all so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.